Back from Qatar. Here I am after being in Doha for the World Cup where I saw Canada get whooped. That's okay. They scored a couple times in the World Cup, and it's been a long time since they were in the World Cup of football. I don't expect a lot of you on this morning because you probably are wondering where the heck I have been, and that is where I've been. I've been in Qatar. So let's catch up on what's going on with the Detroit Red Wings. There's been quite a bit going on since I've been out. Hockey Nation fans, hopefully you've been enjoying all the other game coverage that's been going on with Coach Pierre and all of the other Hockey Nation fans and experts. So it was an interesting game last night. We saw the Detroit Red Wings in Tampa Bay, and it was the return of Derek Lalonde, who was an assistant coach with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the Red Wings really responded last night. This is their second win in a row. We see these little streaks by the Red Wings constantly, right? Like they were on a 3-game losing streak prior to this, and now they're on a 2-game winning streak. And this is all netting out nicely in the standings. But this was a battle of the third and the fourth place teams. Who would have thunk that? The Tampa Bay Lightning and the Detroit Red Wings, third and fourth place going into last night, with actually Tampa in third and Red Wings in fourth. And if the winner of this would come out on top in the standings in the Atlantic, and we're like a quarter of the way through the season, so this is pretty interesting to see. Like we have a pretty resilient Detroit group who have lost a lot of offense to injury. I am missing my tooth, by the way, so if you were questioning, yes, it is not there. I knocked this out, as you probably know, a little while ago. Originally, it was a hockey puck, naturally, but it's been okay for a long time, like 20 years. And then I accidentally ripped it out a few months ago, and I'm just waiting until January 5th is the magic date to get, the new one going. And then yesterday I broke my temporary fake tooth. Jeez, what is going on? So if you're like wondering what's going on in there, that's what's going on. All right, so last night's game, we saw the Red Wings get outshot badly. 46-26 by the Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. And they were also dominating in the faceoff circle. So a lot of credit goes to Ville Husso. Not a lot of power plays either way. 1 for the Red Wings, 2 for the Lightning. So not a crazy penalty field game, but the Red Wings do out-hit them, and they block roughly the same shots. But interesting outcome. It was 0-0 after the first, and then Michael Rasmussen broke the score. So it's good always when you see one of the young Red Wings. Oh no, am I missing my slides? Here we go. Oh geez, I don't have the score up. That's weird. I guess I cut out my other slide. So the Red Wings get on the scoreboard with Michael Rasmussen. I'm actually going to see if I can pull this up because it's a little easier to look if we look at the box score that way. And let's just we're going to share my screen, and we're going to go over here. Okay. Yeah, this is a little better. So you can see over here, Michael Rasmussen gets on the board with his 4th of the season. Right now he's kind of on pace for like 12 goals, which is not too bad. He's played pretty well. So he made it 1-0 for the Red Wings. And then in the third is when the floodgates kind of opened a little bit, but not crazily. Jonatan Berggren continues to produce. And I thought at the beginning of the year, like, he had such a take that, Blash Hill. Exactly, Blash Hill. So this was a return of Derek Lalonde to Tampa. But if you look over on the Tampa bench, the long-serving, believe it or not, he was there like 6 to 8 years or something, Jeff Blashill, coach of the Detroit Red Wings, he's an assistant coach in Tampa. So the Tampa-Detroit cross DNA continues. So it's almost like these guys traded spots. So Blashill on the bench for Tampa Bay as an assistant coach, not the head coach, but one of John Cooper's assistants. He's a pretty hot, I think Steve Yzerman liked him. He's a pretty competent hockey guy. I don't know if he's like the right head coach for the Red Wings, obviously, but Derek Lalonde sure is. He's doing great here. So then Jonatan Berggren, who I was talking about, I was really looking forward to. He had a great training camp. He started the season in the AHL, but with all the injuries, with Robbie Fabry out, with the Verona situation, with Tyler Bertuzzi down, like so many goals, Zadina, not really panning out. Here we are. We've got Jonatan Berggren continuing to produce, and this is not going to stop, folks. When you see Jonatan Berggren, he's just very, very talented, and he's very, very consistent. He's shown he can play wing, which was my big question coming this season. Maybe one day he'll be a number 1 centerman. He's that good. Yeah, Lalonde for Blashill, that's a pretty good swap. We're finding that out. maybe coming into the season, it was like, wow, a little, maybe on paper you're like looking for a big name coach, and I kind of was thinking that, but I also thought that maybe Steve Yzerman, knowing him, he'll go off the board a little bit and looking for the next, John Cooper, who would be with the organization for 10 years, and I think he's found it. I mean, I'm very impressed with the way Lalonde has, coached this team. So Jonatan Berggren getting his third of the year, and I'm just going to drill down on this for 1 second because now Berggren has played 12 games. He's got 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. If you look at his points per game average, I think it's ahead of Lucas Raymond, who's not having a bad year, but he's not having the year he was last year. And they need him to continue to produce it. This is a sophomore slump for Lucas Raymond. I'm not that worried because he's on pace for 45, 50 points. And, he might go on a little streak at some point, but Jonatan Berggren producing a little bit like the similar or a little ahead of his pace. So this is very good news for a team that has been kind of decimated by injuries and other issues. Then Stamkos made it 2-1 in the third also, assist from Hedman and Perry. Also want to point out Dominic Kubalik getting his 15th assist. So this has been continues to be an amazing signing by Stevie Yzerman, and he's here next year too for a really, really inexpensive amount of money. That's pretty good. And then we go down and you look at this guy, Olli Määttä. Olli Määttä, all of last year, I think, had 9 points. I think he now has this year, is he at 10? Yep, he's at 10. So he's surpassed his total season point total. And if you look at his history, he really has, not produced great defensively since 2017-18. Like, you kind of thought, oh, this is pretty good. Well, he might be back at this level. Like, he's kind of producing at that similar pace. So this is good news. Like, it didn't really work out in LA where he got back to that level, but so far in Detroit, playing with Philip Hronek, who's had a phenomenal year in the end. Like, he's like really, really been good. This is a good news story for the Detroit Red Wings, and hopefully they keep Olli Määttä and he keeps playing like this long term. Adam Erne getting his fourth made it 3-1, and that proves to be the game winner. Braden Point tries to get them back in, making it 3-2 in the third from Killorn and Kucherov. Want to point out, Andrew Kopp, big off-season free agent signing. I agree with this, by the way, MSU. Berggren making a silent college resume. Like, this should not be silent for much longer. I really think, and I said this at the beginning, that the goalie Logan Thompson is going to win this. Right? The goalie in Vegas's record is excellent. He is their man with, they don't need Robin Leonard with him around. He's a cool cucumber and he's playing very, very well. I believe in the end, that's who will win the Calder. That's my belief. I think he'll get 55, 60 games in and he'll be the guy. But, Jonatan Berggren, if he gets like 55, 60 games in, I don't know how many games, he's missed 12. So he conceivably could have gotten 70 games. He might end up with 45, 50 points, and he's just going to keep climbing. He's a little further down, but I just think he's a very consistent, talented player, and this is a great news story. He had a phenomenal year in the AHL last year for Grand Rapids, and he has nothing to gain by going to the AHL. And I think this will precipitate, like, if you have guys like Vrana, you're not going to care if he comes back necessarily. I mean, you want him back, but under the right circumstance. Robbie Fabry, not long for this team. Zadina, I don't see replacing Berggren with Zadina at this point. Like, he's done what Zadina's never been able to do. So they make it 3-2, and then the final goal, I can't remember if this was an empty netter. I thought it was, but ends up 4-2 with 19:35. David Perron, for some reason I think this, I'm trying to remember. I watched the end of this, and then I kind of blanked out after that. They were up 3-2, and I kind of did some other things, but I came back. I'll go check that. I'm pretty sure that was an empty net goal. David Perron, also from Kopp, getting his second assist of the game. And Philip Hronek, this is what I was saying. Like, he started out a little, off. He is now a +13 on the year. This is a guy that was -38 last year. So that's good news. But it's not just that. 24 points in 25 games. We knew he's got a good shot. We know he's capable of running a power play. I think he had to gain the trust of the coach to get in that situation. And this is really turning out. Like, this is a career -82, but 142 points in 270 NHL games is no joke. And on a year where, again, Moritz Seider is probably off his production by quite a bit of last year. If you look at the stats for this team, he is not producing at a high clip. And again, you get sophomore slumps from Raymond and Seider. And if this is a sophomore slump, the minus 13 is really concerning, by the way. Like Sherrod is also like a minus 12. So in the absence of him playing at that, it was like, is he ready for a Norris Trophy? Nope, not there yet. But Philip Hronek, man, is he in that category? Maybe. Like, this is a young Czech defenseman with a lot of talent. So far, the biggest win of the season, and we needed a win like this. Yeah, I think it's a great win. I mean, they've had some blowout wins during the year, and this is a team that really has had a bit of trouble like staying healthy. Interesting move when I was away was Magnus Hellberg was picked up from the Ottawa Senators, and we have not really seen, and I kind of predicted this at the beginning of the year, and it's coming true, that Husso would be taking over the net. You just see this huge gap between these guys. Hellberg, 935 save percentage. This is interesting. Like, does this guy get in? I'm not sure. If you look at, let's just take a look at the goaltending in Detroit. Right now, this is Ville Husso's team, and we haven't seen Hellberg get in. Is he, maybe, I wonder if he shows up under Ottawa still. Oh, look at that. You can see the Montreal Maroon. What the heck? Yeah, Hellberg. He only played one game, 935 save percentage, 2 goals against. They're obviously going in Forsberg and Talbot, so they grabbed Magnus Hellberg on waivers. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because I just don't think Nedeljkovic's going to cut it, and he's not really helping them in any way. Ville Husso doing a great job. Another inspired offseason pickup. And you look at the St. Louis Blues, where he came from, and they have struggled. And Jordan Binnington, there was like, Craig Berube said, enough is enough with his nonsense. I guess he's like complaining a lot, and he's very superstitious, and just like kind of like a live wire there. I'm waiting to be. So I don't know. This is like they sent Thomas Greiss away. He gets picked up by St. Louis. So essentially, it's similar to the Blashill for Lalonde trade. That's kind of what that ended up being. Similar. Greiss for Husso's really worked out for the Red Wings. Like, this is a great, great, great pickup. Did want to look quickly, just on the Connor McDavid watch here, 48 points in 26 games. He continues to produce at a high clip. It's come down a little bit, but still 1.85 points per game is no slouch. Leon Draisaitl right on his tails, but the story in the NHL has got to be Jason Robertson. Like, his streak finally ended last night against the Maple Leafs. 4-0 win for the Maple Leafs. Mitch Marner's at 20-game point streak. Pretty good. Yeah, maybe Hellberg is a third-string guy. I don't discount that, but I mean, what the heck is Nedeljkovic at this point? Like, is he a second string? I don't think so. It's like, just you can't rely on this guy. To rely on him for being inconsistent, that's for sure. Just going back to this quickly, it's interesting. Even with a 20-game point streak, Mitch Marner is only 14th in scoring, so that's interesting. He's getting his points, though. 32 points in 27 games. Nothing to sneeze at. This has to be the craziest story. Like, would you have anticipated that Jason Robertson, as good as you should maybe, that he's a 40-goal scorer, but he's showing another level here. I think if you look on ESPN, it'll project this out, but is this a 70-goal season for him? Like, what the heck? That's 70 goals is what he's on pace for. Like, that is crazy. California kid. Really, really, Dallas is just a machine too, like, led by Joe Pavelski. If you are San Jose, you're like, why did we get rid of this guy? He's cheap, and he continues to produce like nutty numbers, and everyone around him is really good. Like, Rupe Hintz having a great year, but that Jason Robertson story is something else. And there's good old reliable Kucherov, who last night got points, but he's up there. I mean, this is not a slouch of a player, although -3 is not great. I wanted to point this out. Sidney Crosby is not falling off here. 15 goals. Like, this is terrific. Lalonde said Ned is going to get a start soon. I mean, listen, Florida would be the choice. Florida is the yo-yo team in the NHL. This is a typical, Paul Maurice team. They are super inconsistent. And it's really, I think if you're a Florida fan, you're like shaking your head. Why did we bring this guy in? Like, we were better under Andrew Burnett, who looked clueless in the playoffs. Like, just wow, am I really on the bench on an NHL team? Yeah, we were asking the same thing, but now you got Paul Maurice, and you're like, what? Like, Florida is a mess. I said this last night to Coach Frenchie, and are they going to make the playoffs? And I don't think they are. I mean, Florida should make the playoffs. This team on paper is maybe better than last year, but 88 goals against ain't going to cut it. Like, Detroit at 78 is really, really a major, major improvement for the Red Wings. And Florida's gone the opposite direction here. Maybe. I would start them against Florida. Florida's so erratic, and they've got just like nonstop problems that, you know, there's always something they're dealing with, it seems. And the goaltending there has not been amazing. So I guess it depends. Like, do they go with Spencer Knight against Detroit? Are teams taking Detroit lightly at this point is a good question. You know, are they going to put their backup against Detroit? Or are they going to put their, you know, their like Bob in? It's going to be interesting to see, because at some point you've got to say, geez, Detroit is really hard to play against. This is a team that's, you know, 620 at this point in the season, a third of the way through the season almost. Like this is great. 6-2-2, and this was after a 3-game losing streak. They won 2 in a row, and they seem to pull these things together. Like they you know, they lose a few, but then they win a few, or they get points. Like they lose in overtime, so they're still getting points, and then they come out and they grab a couple wins. Like overall, like Detroit's a really tough team to play against. With the win last night, they move into sole possession of third. And I mean, overall, you've got to be very, very happy with where the Detroit Red Wings are. I think my concern was always with, is Dylan Larkin really a number one centerman? Really tough to fault him at this point. I mean, he's going to need a contract. And right now, you know, he's on a pace for 80 points. He's a +7. He's doing everything you would want. And Kubalik is right there, and he's really cheap. So I think Dylan Larkin's probably going to get a $9 million contract. That would make sense at this point. Philip Roenick making a case that, hey, he might be a number 1, number 2 defenseman. I always thought he was a number 2, and you'd play him on the second pairing. And Moritz Seider is going to be a great defenseman, and still is, but, you know, he's just having a bit of a sophomore slump a little bit, probably different expectations of how he plays. And, you know, with Lucas Raymond's future, like, this is not terrible. 0.6 points per game. 0.67, though, for Jonatan Berggren is what I was talking about. Like, you know, if they had just stuck with him in the beginning, this probably would have been smart. But they wanted to give Zadina a chance. Zadina couldn't even draw in the lineup, and then gets hurt again. Verona, we know the situation there. And then Tyler Bertuzzi, like, gone again. You know, gets hurt again. I think he just had surgery. Was it on his shoulder or something? And Elmer Soderblom is really not able to draw back in the lineup. I don't know if he's hurt. I haven't really kept up with this. But, you know, he's not in the AHL. So I don't know, is he hurt? He has not played since November the 8th anywhere. So what is the situation with Soderblom? I need to look into that. The Red Wings end up winning. Keep this winning. Florida isn't making the playoffs. I don't think Florida is not going to be as consistent as the Red Wings. I mean, that seems very obvious. This is coaching. Like, there's nothing. If you're a coach, you would want that Florida lineup. You're like, what am I missing here? Nothing. I mean, you've got Matthew Tkachuk, 35 points in 24 games. He has not missed a beat since coming over from Calgary. Carter Verhaeghe continuing to be a steal several years ago from Tampa. Montour is like 22 points in 24 games. This is good news. And Sam Bennett has picked up his offense. So, yeah, okay, you're missing this guy who's a point a game and your star. But, you know, they got lots of other weapons. Reinhardt's a little off, but he kind of gets streaky at times, and he's always going to get points. -7 is not beautiful. So that's ugly. And then, you know, they're getting production from other guys. Like, they're getting production from Lou Ostrainen. Colin White has kind of fizzled out recently. And Aaron Ekblad's drawn back in. You know, he continues to be okay. But this is not a terrible team. And you got 2 goalies that most teams would drool over. And Bob's inconsistent. But I just chalk this up to coaching. I don't know. Maybe that's not fair. If the New York teams don't make the playoffs, Florida's in. Well, I don't think the Islanders are dropping anytime soon. They seem to be pretty solid. And the Rangers, I think they're just a victim of the New Jersey Devils at this point. Like, would you have predicted still at 26 games, New Jersey Devils are like 827 winning percentage. Carolina's consistently really, really good. And then we see Pittsburgh, you know, picking up wins here. 3 wins in a row. So let's bump these guys down, and they're playing 500. So maybe this is where the Islanders drop off. The Rangers have got to be seen as a big disappointment at this point. Like, you've got the Vezina guy, like 80 goals against. Like, that should not be the case. He should be like here. Like, Vanacek is outperforming Shesterkin. Who would have said that? You know, like Columbus is worse with Johnny Gaudreau. It's really weird. Like, do you trade Johnny Gaudreau for Oliver Bjorkstrand? They were better with Bjorkstrand, maybe. That's weird. I don't know. That's a weird situation. The Patrick Laine situation, not great. Boston crushing it. Toronto crushing it. You know, they're 7-0-3 in their last 10, Toronto, and the Mitch Marner thing is crazy. And suddenly, you know, Matthews within striking distance again of 50. So that's a great team. And Detroit's hanging right in there. Like, no problem. Interesting year so far. Lots of great storylines. Lots of storylines in the past would have decimated Detroit. But, you know, you see the presence of guys like Kubalik, Perron, much like the best goaltending Detroit has had in what, 20 years? Who's better than Ville Husso that has been in this net? I mean, you have to go back to Dominik Hasek. Is that crazy? I mean, who's been better than him? And would you go back and say, oh, Chris Osgood was so much better? Nobody loved Osgood. Osgood was just on a great team, and he was solid and a competitor. But Ville Husso is a big, prototypical, you know, hybrid goalie, finish, doing the deed. So all good news stories. This is the second win in a row, as I mentioned, for the Red Wings. But prior to that, they had kind of a 3-game losing streak. They lost an overtime game as well. So overall, this is pretty good. Let's take a look at what's to be expected and coming up. Mata getting on the board, like I mentioned, is 10th. Husso, 957 last night. I mean, this is the type of goaltending we dreamed of. St. Louis got to be kicking themselves. Regardless of what you pay Jordan Binnington, he's erratic. I love Jordy, but, you know, he is erratic. It's crazy. Kubalik having a phenomenal year, point per game. And you're getting contributions from other guys. The Jonatan Berggren story is really good. Rasmussen continues to, you know, chip in. You'd like to. Austin Czarnik's a good story. 2 goals in 7 games. He gets called up again because of injuries. Like, Bertuzzi goes out, they draw Austin Czarnik in, and he's just a little guy, but he's got high skill level. Like, this is a great pickup as well. Like, flex guy, does really well in the AHL, and then he comes up and he's producing offensively reasonably consistently. He's not getting a lot of ice time. All right, this is wrong. It's not Wednesday. This is tomorrow, I think, actually. So this is Thursday's matchup against the Florida Panthers. You know, we see a Florida team that's 3-4-3 in their last 10 guys. They've lost 1. They are like a 500 team, man. 12-10. This is a 500 team. Like, they're not doing great. You know, it's interesting. Goals against average for the Red Wings 304, but Husso has been 254. So I mean, this is Nedeljkovic dragging him down. Like, I don't know. Husso's been very, very good. So it'll be interesting to see what the matchup is in net. Philip Hronek, as I mentioned, 6 points in his last 5 games. He's almost a point a game in the season. Oscar Sundqvist, another great pickup from last year. He's been really, really good when he's in the lineup, consistently contributing in a bunch of different ways, including in front of the net and offensively. Florida's our number lately. Okay, well, maybe. Let's hope this is not how, you know, you got a lot to contend with over here. It's all Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk. So, I don't know. Is Barkov out? Or is Barkov in? I don't even know. I'd have to check on that. I'll have to check the injury report. All right, so that's tomorrow night's game. What do you think? What'll happen with this matchup? Do the Red Wings continue this good run? I think that they're going to just be much more consistent. Just depends on, are they going with Husso or Nedeljkovic? Because if it's Nedeljkovic, then it could be a mess. Like, this could be a 6 or an 8-2 game. Because we've seen that, or he could play real well, but we haven't seen that very often. So you also have to look at 3 shutouts for Ville Husso on the year. Night and day team with this goaltending. The other guy I was going to check on, because I haven't looked at in a while, is how is our friend Sebastian Cossa doing? Let's see if we can find out, because I have not really kept up on him just because I've been away. He is still playing in the ECHL, .898 save percentage. This doesn't surprise me. He did not play well for Team Canada last year. I thought he had a very good rookie camp and a very good training camp. He's only played 2 games in the AHL. He's in the ECHL. This is going to be a bit of a time thing. This is going to be a bit of a project. So I just think we got to be patient with him. You've got to think in a couple years he's there. Taking a look at Grand Rapids, though, I mean, there's some good news here, right? Taro Hirose continues to be an effective AHL player. Joel Lesperance, wow, that's crazy. I guess that. But Zarnik, as I was mentioning, 14 points, 12 games on a 40-goal pace in the AHL. That's good news when he's down there. Pontus Andreasen, I did not think he had a good camp, but he is producing the AHL pretty well. So maybe this is a guy that draws in if they have more, need. Cross Hannes as a rookie, though, 12 points in 17 games, 7 goals, -10, not great. However, I think this is a good potential future player for the Red Wings. I don't know where he'll fit. Simon Edvinsson, he's had some injuries, but 9 points in 15 games. He's developing his game down there. And then Jared McIsaac, as long as he's healthy, that's what you want from him. And he's on kind of like a 35, 40-point pace down there. So those are all good news stories. We know Matt Luft is out long-term. Jonatan Berggren's up in the NHL along with Austin Zarnik. So, there's some good stories down there. Kirill Tudiev, still not really a big point producer down the AHL. He's fun to watch, but I just don't think that's got a bright future. Hellberg, interesting. So he played. When did he play? It looks like he got in there for a game. That's interesting. That must have been earlier in the year. Because I think it's Bradstrom and Olkanura. Those are the goalies right now, and both are like sub 900 by quite a bit on their save percentage. So interesting. How is Alex Chason? Is he still with the Red Wings organization? That's interesting. Keep an eye on that. Alex Chason is not a bad player. Alex Chason is on the roster there. Am I missing something here? Yeah, that's that Alex Chason. I mean, last year, this guy had 13 goals in 67 NHL games. He's always been able to chip in offensively. So I don't know if he's hurt because he hasn't played any games anywhere. Keep an eye on that. He's a big body, and he's got some ability to pop some pucks in. All right, guys. So looking ahead, Hockey Nation for life. Thank you, Real Deal Prime, for joining. The Panthers have been beaten us in the last 6 matchups. Well, it sounds like it's time for a win. Good morning, Danny. Thank you for joining us. We are a quarter before the hour. So just looking ahead, Grand Rapids is doing well again. Hopefully they can actually use the talent. Yeah, I mean, the goaltending ain't that great, and the defense looks a little thin down there. So that's, probably part of what's going on. But interesting. When you got pieces like this, you kind of keep your eye on it. If Simon Edvinson's getting a lot of ice time, that's kind of what you want. Let him develop down there because he looked like he wasn't really ready for the NHL. I think the AHL is the right place for him. Well, interesting outcome so far, but I would just say if Toledo can finally win these. Yeah, not our real focus, though. We want to get Sebastian Cossa performing at a high level in the ECHL so he can get to the AHL and then maybe in a couple years the NHL. He's got the raw material, but there's just something missing there. Like, needs to have more snap on the puck. All right, guys, so check out Hockey Nation Live tonight. Coach Frenchie returns. Last night was a great night for the Montreal Canadiens. There you go. Newfoundland Growlers. Is that Toronto's ECHL team? I think that might be their team, right? Maybe. They're probably a lot better than Toledo at this point. All right, so we're looking ahead. We have on the schedule. So I don't know if I can zoom in on that. We obviously have Florida on Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time at Florida. So they continued the Florida road swing. Yeah, Toronto. That's what I thought. The Walleye has lost the ECHL back-to-back. Maybe. He doesn't look like he's killing it down there, though. He's sub 900. That is not good. I would pay a lot of attention to the save percentage. I mean, that's really important. I think that's the one stat that makes a lot of sense to me. All right. So tough, it's not going to be a cakewalk against Florida. You don't know which Florida team is going to show up. You know Matthew Tkachuk's going to be a nightmare. If they get decent goaltending or better goaltending, that could be the difference. So not an easy game on the Florida road swing. So we will see that game tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern time. Saturday is the big game. Dallas coming off a loss to Toronto, 4-0 shutout. They're going to be pissed. So Dallas is no slouch. This is a great team. We'll get to see Jason Robertson up close. He is killing it on a 70-goal pace. Lots of other good stories in Dallas. They are clicking under Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott. So good next couple days ahead. We will look for that, and we will connect with you again Friday morning to recap what happens in the Florida game and preview the Dallas game on Saturday. Hockey Nation fans, thank you for joining. Thank you for commenting. Please like. I know there's not a lot of people because I've been away. I will be back. I will do my darndest to do a live on Friday. Husso stood on his head, like absolutely outshot, right? 46 or 48 shots against, and he had a .957 save percentage. 3 shutouts on the year, .916 save percentage. He is doing great. I was saying earlier, Clump Sauce, that if you look at Detroit's goaltending, you liked Jonathan Bernier, but this is the best goaltender they've had since probably Dominik Hasek. Like, who's been better? He's better than Jimmy Howard. He's like, Jimmy Howard is always so frustrating. You watch Jimmy Howard on the broadcasts, I'm like, this is the guy you put all your faith in for a decade. Like, no offense, but it's like he's got some weird tendency. Oh my God. Well, yeah, please join us in the morning. I'm generally Monday, Wednesday, Friday is when I'm going to do these. I will get back on track now that I'm back from Qatar. I was at the World Cup, watched Canada, watched Argentina and Mexico. That was a crazy game. 89,000 people in that stadium. Qatar was great. Doha was great. Don't believe it. We had a great time, and it was really, really well-run games. Dryden McKay. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, it was a great time in Doha. So Canada bowed out after 3 games, but I guess they're just happy to be there. I'm just going to tell you, yeah, goalies are weird though, but these are extra weird. Like, you see him on the broadcast. Like, is he like waking up and then jumping on? It's like he's half asleep and he's like rocking and he's doing weird stuff and he talks like in a halting tones. You're like, I used to hear about him in the dressing room and he was like doing weird OCD stuff. Like, come on. Anyways, it was like their Billy Madison goalie. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to wrap it up now. Check back in on Friday morning. Yeah, I don't know. Poor Jimmy Howard. But I don't want to watch that. That's just painful watching that, knowing this is the guy for so long that they just kept going back to. And you knew he wasn't good enough, and you can never hold them in. Ville Husso is the best goalie they've had since Hasek. I mean, fight me. Prove me wrong. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great Wednesday, and we will see you on Friday morning. Yeah, you need a great goalie. Jeez, at least above average. And you got above average with Husso, so that's all good. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up, and we will see you on Friday morning to recap the Florida Red Wings game. Yeah, for sure. But Hasek was after that, right? No, maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. Thank you, Danny, for joining. We will see you, everybody, on the future Hockey Nation Live broadcast tonight. Join Coach Frenchie. Check in for the times for that. And, yeah. We will look forward to seeing how they do against the Florida Panthers and who starts in net.